So here we are once again, folks. Good evening. Welcome to Friday Night Tech Talk. I'm Mobile Geezer, and if you're on YouTube, you probably already know that. But we also simulcast at the same time. Simulcast means at the same time, doesn't it? On Facebook, on either Mobile Geezer or under my name, George Hayes. So you can go on Facebook under either one of those, and you'll get the live broadcast also. But if you're new here, welcome. Glad to have you here. And Brian got in here really early. It was like he was just waiting for me to pick it up, put it up. He was in here at 2 minutes to 7. And as soon as he got in, as always, he gives me a donation. The guy is so faithful. Thank you, Brian. And Eleanor just popped in. Hey, Eleanor, glad to have you here as always. So those are two of the most faithful people that are in this broadcast every week. And I'm very grateful for them and all the rest of you who come in every week. If you're new here, please type something in the comments and say so. Let us know where you're from. And very glad to have you here. I have been picking up some subscribers lately. So hopefully you'll come in once a week and keep up with whatever little bit of news I can come up with for you guys. And speaking of that, every week I give you tech news that's happened from last Friday to this Friday. Now, of course, last Friday was the usually the one exception of the year where Mike took over for Black Friday, which he always likes to do. But he's backdoor dishing tonight. He already told me that. And Ted won't make it tonight because, Ted's a photographer on the side, and he's out doing some Christmas light photography out in Dallas, as far as I know. So whoever's here, and Annette just popped in. Talk about faithful people. Well, there you go again. So we've got faithful people from New York and California, and Eleanor and I are both in Tennessee, so we're kind of in between. So we're spreading it around nicely. And if I know Renz, he's probably over in the Philippines watching, but he probably is just starting rec or just started, so he rarely has time to pop in, but when he does, he usually does. So, Annette, very glad you're here. Thanks for popping in. As always, you've been very timely lately, and I appreciate that very much. So if you're new, every week I put the show notes on my website, so let's show you that. So if you want to, you can follow along in the notes, and you can click on the articles and follow in the articles just as I have them in there. So if you go to mobilegeezer.wordpress.com, click on today's date, you'll get just the show notes for tonight's show. And as I usually do, I'll give you a quick preview of what we're going to talk about tonight. Wasn't an earth-shattering week for tech stuff. The most exciting thing that I know of was Tesla Cybertruck, but we'll get to that. Since Mike had it last week, and we did almost strictly Black Friday stuff, and both Will and Ted were here too, but we didn't do any hard news, and the whole OpenAI saga we totally basically did not cover. So I wanted to get it covered and just kind of go over the whole thing that happened in 5 days, 3 CEOs in 3 days. I mean, that's amazing. So I just said a little related news, the OpenAI Sam Altman 5-day saga. I pulled it off of Mashable because they had the whole timeline there. So we'll go over that because I think that was a major, major story, and it's probably going to affect, I'm guessing, not only us, but people around the world, and I mean that literally, probably in the next year or two. So I think it's a big, important story. So I followed that up, saying Altman brought Microsoft to the board on his return. That's on The Verge. And the funny thing is, Microsoft has a 49% share in this company, and they weren't even on the board, which I guess they'll be sitting on the board now. So we'll go over that. That's a much shorter story. And then the big news of the week was the Cybertruck. After all this time with people waiting, I just said, the Cybertruck is real. No, really. And I picked the story from The Verge. Of course, everybody had this story. So we'll go over that. And then I found, and I told you I always try to come up with stories that you're not going to see everywhere else. So I found a couple of stories about NVIDIA, and this first one I said, NVIDIA soon to become the world's semiconductor leader, and this is said by the TSMC chairman. So I thought that was very interesting. The world leader right now is saying that. So he expects that to happen. Right behind it, a story that's a couple of weeks older, but I just thought the follow-up story was perfect. Lawsuit accuses NVIDIA of stealing trade secrets. Both of those are on Tom's Hardware, both written by the same guy. So we'll go over those. I don't think you'll see that story everywhere. Then there's a rumor going around now. Oh, I just had today, the only phone I usually come here straight from work. The phones I have with me today are the iPhone, and that's based on my watch. I had my Apple Watch SE on today, and I had my Nothing Phone 2. But there's a rumor going around that a Nothing Phone 2A is coming out. I just said a mid-range Nothing Phone 2. So I pulled that from Android Authority. And finally, and I just thought, again, it's interesting since Samsung is usually this leader in LPDDR chips. Samsung to mass produce LPDDR5T RAM chips because right this second, they are not the big time leader. So we'll go over that. Just thought that was an interesting story. So those are the stories we're going to go over tonight. And nothing new in the comments now. Since I'm not expecting Ted to drop in and I'm not expecting Mike to drop in, our only shot is if Will deems to stop by. So if he does, I'll certainly let you know. And of course, that's always exciting for us. So meanwhile, I'll start, since there's nothing else new in the comments, I'll start on the first story. Pardon me. So we're going to talk about OpenAI, and I'm just going to go over the whole history that happened in all of 5 days. I'm going to go to Mashable, and it says, let's see if I can dismiss this. Okay. Here's a timeline of the OpenAI saga with CEO Sam Altman. First, they fire him. Then he joins Microsoft. Now, Sam Altman is back as CEO of OpenAI. How did this happen? Now, this is from November 22nd, but since we didn't get to it last week, I wanted to make sure I covered at least some. So let's take this into reader view. And as I said, I believe OpenAI is probably so far ahead, and that's where some of this problem came from, because they're not telling us that this could be impactful to tech people around the world, probably sooner than later. That's just my belief. So let's just drop into reader view. So this was written by Matt Binder, and there's Sam Altman. There's still a lot unknown about OpenAI and Sam Altman's departure. Here's what we know so far. So that just happened. Over the past week, the entire tech industry has been glued to their screens as the leading artificial intelligence company and creator of ChatGPT. And keep in mind, when it says leader of artificial intelligence, that's leader worldwide. OpenAI was embroiled in a power struggle that saw its CEO fired, replaced twice, and that's in 2 days, and eventually brought back all within 5 days' time. The saga began after the OpenAI board of directors suddenly fired CEO Sam Altman, one of the original founders of OpenAI, who founded the company in 2015 alongside investors like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. Altman would go on to officially join OpenAI as its CEO in 2019 and remain there until all of this. Now, what I believe, and I guess a bunch of other people believe, what really caused this, and they never said specifically what caused the break, but on the one side, you had, and you'll see that in the story, the people who want to keep OpenAI safe. That's the board. And then you've got Sam, who's in charge, but he wants to make money and I guess have OpenAI go as fast as it can, making progress. So, which means, of course, it could become dangerous to humanity. So I think that's what it was about. Somehow they seem to have worked it out. So we'll see. Okay, that's why it was such a shock when OpenAI's board of directors suddenly announced on Friday evening, and this was the 17th, I believe, that Altman was gone from the company. Then, less than 24 hours later, reports quickly spread that OpenAI was looking to bring Altman back. What? Let's recap what went on day by day so it's easier to digest. And yeah, this is fascinating if you haven't heard about it or kept up with it. Friday, November 17th, was shaping up to be just a regular day in the growing AI space until suddenly, in the late afternoon, the OpenAI board of directors announced that the company was firing CEO Sam Altman. The tech industry was shocked, as there'd been no indication that Altman and the leading AI organization and its boardroom were at odds. The way in which Altman was let go and what OpenAI's board said was even more surprising. What they didn't say was worse. Mr. Altman's departure follows a deliberative review process by the board, which concluded that he was not, now get this, consistently candid in his communications with the board, hindering its ability to exercise its responsibilities, OpenAI's post said. The board no longer has confidence in his ability to continue leading OpenAI, and we'll get into what most of us think was meant by all that kind of gobbledygook. OpenAI's board did not share what exactly its issue with Altman was, right? Whatever it was, though, seemed extremely serious, and I think it was, as the board didn't even wait until the markets closed. Many companies try to dump any negative press at the end of the day in order to control the most damaging fallout. This was not the case here. And yes, if you go back in history, very often companies will do this kind of move after the markets close on Friday, then they've got all weekend long to clean up the mess. They didn't do that here. The board also announced that OpenAI CTO Mira Murati would take over as interim CEO. So Friday, he's out. Now they have a new CEO, and she was the chief technical officer. So she took over. Rumors and speculation swirled on social media with tech industry heads, reporters, and onlookers trying to make sense of the situation based on what little information was provided in the board's announcement. Tech journalist Kara Swisher quickly reported that based on what information she had from sources, and she really kept up with this, there was a quote unquote misalignment between OpenAI's for-profit side, that would be Sam, represented by Altman, and the non-profit side, which is controlled by the board. So the board is, remember, they were started as a nonprofit, and safety is their number one issue. And I guess they didn't think that was Sam's number one issue. According to Swisher, OpenAI co-founder and chief scientist Ilya Sutskever, and this is kind of the main scientific guy, one of the main developers, I guess, of OpenAI, and certainly one of the founders, was recently able to get the board behind him regarding concerns he had about the more profit-driven direction that OpenAI was moving into. So he wants safety. He's kind of the scientific head of this stuff, and he's thinking they're moving into a dangerous direction because of the money. So he's the one that pushed this and started this whole thing. You'll see how silly this gets later on. OpenAI was originally founded as an open source nonprofit. However, as the years went on, the company's focus shifted into the more traditional tech startup, with Altman allegedly more focused on profit and product development than issues like AI safety. Now, keep in mind, when you say product development here, you're talking AI, teaching AI to think and maybe make it dangerous to the rest of us. So that's what you have to think of product development as something much more serious than normal product development, which caused concern among OpenAI's nonprofit organization, which controls the company. What went down on Friday night appeared to be the two sides butting heads. Soon after OpenAI's announcement, Altman broke his silence via X, or he went on Twitter, the Elon Musk-owned platform formerly known as Twitter. I loved my time at OpenAI. It was transformative for me personally and hopefully the world a little bit. Most of all, I love working with such talented people, Altman posted. We'll have more to say about what's next later. So that was still Friday night, but Friday still wasn't over yet. OpenAI co-founder and president Greg Brockman announced that he had decided to quit the company based on the news. Brockman had been mentioned in OpenAI's announcement as stepping down as board chair, but the company explicitly stated he was staying with the company in his other capacities. So Brockman's sudden Friday night resignation seemed a surprise to everyone on the OpenAI board of directors too. So they're surprised, even though they tell the guy, okay, you're out, but you're staying here. I don't think that worked too well. Obviously it didn't. Based on today's news, I quit, Brockman posted, adding that he was proud of his time at OpenAI. 3 senior OpenAI researchers, OpenAI's director of research, Jacob Pachoki, no, I think it's Pachoki. Pardon me if I mess up their names. The head of AI risk team, Alexander Madry, and senior researcher, Seisman Sidor, also announced their resignations from the company. When we get down to it, it's almost going to be everybody. Brockman then followed up that announcement with another post sharing his own version of how Altman's firing went down. According to Brockman, Altman received a text message on Thursday evening from Sutskever about a meeting the next day. At that Friday meeting over Google Meet, Altman was fired by the entire board, minus Brockman. So Brockman quit to go with Sam because he wasn't even in that meeting, who was not in attendance. Brockman says he was later informed that he was, now get this, he was being removed from the board, but being retained in his other roles at the company. He's supposed to accept that? I don't think so. And obviously he didn't. According to Brockman, most of OpenAI's management was unaware of Altman's removal until that day. So they didn't really tell anybody kind of outside of their little circle at the board. So now let's go to Saturday. OpenAI wants Altman back. Altman was as good as gone, so it seemed. But if Friday was driven by OpenAI's nonprofit side, then Saturday would see a news cycle driven by the for-profit arms investors who were not happy with Altman's dismissal. Here's the big investor. Big tech companies like Microsoft have invested heavily in OpenAI. The computer giant alone has pledged $13 billion to the company, and it's certainly not because Microsoft feels strongly about the AI safety ethos of the nonprofit organization. It is investing in for-profit OpenAI led by Sam Altman. Yeah, they are 49% owners of this company, and nobody even thought to tell them. According to a report published by Forbes on Saturday, OpenAI's big money investors were using whatever power they had to convince OpenAI's board of directors to reverse their decision and bring Altman back to the company. It worked. The Verge reported that shortly after the Forbes report that OpenAI's board reached out to Altman in an attempt to work out a return to the company. This was all occurring less than 24 hours after his firing. An agreement was reportedly made on Saturday that brought Altman and Brockman back to the company. In addition, the current OpenAI board would resign, and that's key. However, a Saturday night deadline passed and the deal wasn't closed. At this point on Saturday night, it wasn't exactly clear what was happening at OpenAI. Was Altman back? Was he going to start on his own AI company? The uncertainty was starting to become too much for the majority of OpenAI employees, who voiced their disapproval of Altman's firing. By late Saturday night, it was clear that Altman had their support. Yeah, didn't he? As many began publicly standing beside OpenAI's then former CEO, Altman, in return, shared his appreciation for his colleagues. Now, you should know, and of course, I followed a bunch of videos that people made about this because there were probably hundreds of videos about this in those days. And there were 700 and something like 85 or 90 employees. By the time they got to the end of Saturday night, like 780 of them wanted him back. So it was a huge number. Or they were going to quit. I love the OpenAI so much, he said in the post on X. As the day ended, OpenAI was assuring its employees that an agreement to bring Altman back was in the works and the organization remains optimistic. Sunday. Now we come to Sunday. So keep in mind, we had him as CEO on Friday, the lady as CEO on Saturday. Now watch what comes next. First and last time I ever wear one of these, Altman posted on X and alongside a selfie showing him wearing an OpenAI guest badge. And I think we have that picture if we drop out of rear view. Let's see. I remember seeing that picture. I just wanted to see if I'm remembering it from another article or am I right that was here? Okay. Yeah. So now he's in discussions with them at the company. So now he's walking around wearing a guest badge. First and last time I ever wear one of these. So just thought that was, and it was nervy that he put it up on X, I thought. So back to our story, back to Sunday. Altman appeared to be back in the OpenAI offices, ostensibly continuing the negotiations for his return to the company. According to a report from The Information, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella became personally involved in the discussions in order to bring Altman back to the AI company. And I got to say, through this whole thing, keep in mind, Microsoft was never told anything until it came out. And I think Satya Nadella just was classy through this whole thing. Interim CEO Murata also rallied in support for Altman's return. So now she's the new CEO. She's already wanting him back too. But it all seemed to fall apart for good later that day. OpenAI announced it was bringing former Twitch executive Emmett Shear on board as its new interim CEO. So he was in CEO on Friday. She was CEO on Saturday. Now it's Sunday. Now they have Emmett Shear, third CEO in 3 days. At this point, it appeared the saga was over. Altman, the interim CEO, and OpenAI's moneyed backers tried to negotiate a return and get the board that fired Altman to step down. The power play seemingly failed. OpenAI seemed poised to move on without Altman and even Murati now. Now, you should know, I don't think it's in the story, but at one point, the 770 or 75 employees that worked there said either the board quits or they were all walking out. So I think that had something to do with pushing this a little further too. All right, now we go to Monday. Monday started off with a bang as Microsoft CEO Nadella had a big announcement to make in the early hours of the morning. Altman and Brockman were joining Microsoft. So, see, Nadella was smart with Microsoft. He could not lose. If Altman stayed at OpenAI, Microsoft wins. If he comes to Microsoft, Microsoft wins. So, smart man. We're extremely excited to share the news that Sam Altman and Greg Brockman, together with colleagues, keep in mind, other people from the company will be coming, probably the majority of them, will be joining Microsoft to lead a new advanced AI research team, Nadella posted on X. We look forward to moving quickly to provide them with the resources needed for their success. So Satya was prepared to give them whatever they needed. because Microsoft is way ahead of Google and App. He's ahead of everybody because of OpenAI, and he means to keep it that way. Nadella also said in his post that Microsoft was committed to its partnership to OpenAI, but this arrangement seemed like a difficult one to maintain. Microsoft was clearly bringing Altman in to work on an AI product of the company's own. Furthermore, by this point, hundreds of OpenAI employees were threatening to quit the company and jump ship to Microsoft over Altman's firing, right? Even more alarming, Sutskever, the guy who started all of this in the first place, the OpenAI co-founder and chief scientist who allegedly started the whole issue, had now turned on OpenAI's board. So now he wants him back. I deeply regret my participation in the board's actions, even though he started it. Sutskever posted on X. I never intended to harm OpenAI. I love everything we've built together, and I will do everything I can to reunite the company. So that's a complete turnaround. A petition signed by Sutskever and hundreds of OpenAI employees later circulated. And I tell you, that's the vast majority of the employees signed that petition, demanding that the OpenAI board of directors stay down, and they got their way too. By this point, this all seemed for naught, right? Altman had signed on with Microsoft, according to Microsoft's own CEO. Well, not quite. New reports claim that despite what Nadella said, the reason so many OpenAI employees were still pushing for Altman's return was because the Microsoft deal had yet to become official. And like I said, Microsoft couldn't lose. And Nadella would confirm it during a CNBC interview on Monday evening, where he avoided giving a straightforward answer to the question, is Sam Altman going to be a Microsoft employee? Okay, now Tuesday, Wednesday return. So now we're in the fourth and fifth day. We now know that Sam Altman is indeed not an official Microsoft employee, and that's because Sam Altman is officially back as CEO at OpenAI. Late Tuesday, early Wednesday morning, OpenAI announced on X that Sam Altman was officially back as CEO and that the vast majority of the board of directors were gone. So the employees got what they wanted. We have reached an agreement in principle for Sam Altman to return to OpenAI as CEO with a new initial board of Brett Taylor, chair, Larry Summers, and Adam D'Angelo, the official OpenAI account posted on X. We are collaborating to figure out the details. So they got a new board. Thank you so much for your patience through this. There are still many unanswered questions about the whole OpenAI saga. For one, we still don't know OpenAI's concerns about Altman that led the board to abruptly fire him and say they basically could not trust him. And a lot of people think, me being one of them, that they are way much further ahead with this whole AI learning business than most people think. And that's where this came from. Maybe we will soon find out exactly what went on from some of those very same board members who fired Altman, but who are no longer in the boardroom. So that was the whole story. From Friday to Wednesday, he was back as CEO, but the entire board got replaced except for one guy who they did bring back. And interestingly, the one guy they brought back, and you'll see that in the next story, is from a company that's their competitor. Okay, let's see if there's anything new. Yeah, Brian says corporate backtracking. Yeah, there was a lot of politics going on here, but somehow, I guess Altman convinced the chief scientist, who was also one of the co-founders, that maybe he wasn't pushing towards anything dangerous. That's the only thing I can think of. Personally, I think they probably are, but I guess we'll find out at some point. But my guess is it'll probably be a couple of years. All right. Brian had the only comment there. I just thought that was a really fascinating story, and because we didn't get to it last week, I just figured we had to go over it at least. A follow-up. I said Altman brought Microsoft to the board on his return. This was on The Verge. Let's go into that. And this was Okay, just a couple of days ago. Microsoft joins OpenAI's board with Sam. So now Microsoft is a part of the board. And Sam Altman officially back as CEO. After a failed attempt to oust Altman by the board, OpenAI's largest investor, that's Microsoft, is getting a non-voting observer seat. So Microsoft won no matter what. I don't understand why they'll get to be a voter, but I guess Satya agreed to this. So let's go into review. I probably am not going to go through all of this, but just wanted to do a little follow-up. Sam Altman is officially OpenAI CEO again. Just before Thanksgiving, their company said it had reached a deal in principle for him to return, and now it's done. Microsoft is getting a non-voting observer seat on the nonprofit board that controls OpenAI as well, the company announced on Wednesday. Yeah, I found it amazing that up until then, Microsoft had a 49% stake, and they weren't even on the board. I have never been more, but I guess there's a lot about Satya's trust in Sam Altman, I guess. I've never been more excited about the future, Altman said in a memo to employees shared with The Verge. I am extremely grateful for everyone's hard work in an unclear and unprecedented situation. And I believe our resilience and spirit set us apart in the industry. I feel so good about our probability of success for achieving our mission. Of course, he's not telling us what that mission is. With 3 of the 4 board members who decide to suddenly fire Altman now gone, OpenAI's new board consists of Chair Bret Taylor, Larry Summers, and Adam D'Angelo. He's the only one that came back from the previous board, and I guess that's okay. I get the impression he must be awfully good friends with Sam, even though he has a competing company, the only remaining holdout from the previous board. OpenAI adding Microsoft to the board as a non-voting observer means that the tech giant will have more visibility into the company's inner workings, but not have an official vote in big decisions. But I gotta believe if somebody has a 49% share of my company, if they want something, I'm going to do my best to give it to them. Microsoft is a major investor in OpenAI with a 49% stake in a for-profit entity that the nonprofit board controls. So the nonprofit board still is in charge, but I got to believe Microsoft is probably in a stronger and stronger position. Until now, it has had no visibility into that board. That led to a big surprise when Altman was ousted, threatening what has quickly become one of the most important partnerships in tech. A spokesperson from Microsoft declined to comment, get this, on who from the company would fill its observer seat. I got to think when Satya wants to sit there, he's going to sit there. In his memo to employees, Altman said that he harbors zero ill will toward Ilya Sutskever. I wonder. OpenAI's co-founder and chief scientist, who initially participated in the board coup and changed his mind after nearly all of the company's employees threatened to quit if Altman didn't come back. While Ilya will while Ilya will no longer serve on the board, we hope to continue our working relationship, get that, hope to continue, and are discussing how he can continue his work at OpenAI. As zero ill will, I doubt it, but who knows? The fact that we did not lose a single customer will drive us to work even harder for you, he told employees. I am returning to OpenAI as CEO. Mira will return to her role as CTO, so she's back where she started, which I guess she was happy with in the first place. The new initial board will consist of Bret Taylor, Larry Summers, and Adam D'Angelo. I have never been more excited about the future. I am extremely grateful for everyone's hard work. Okay, well, he already said this up top. I feel so good about our probability of success in achieving our mission. What's that mission? We don't know. Before getting to what comes next, I'd like to share some thanks. I love and respect Ilya. I think he's a guiding light of the field and a gem of a human being. I harbor zero ill will towards him. While Ilya will no longer serve on the board, we hope to continue our working relationship and discussing how we continue his work at OpenAI. I am grateful to Adam, Tasha, and Helen for working with us to come to this solution that best serves the mission. I'm excited to continue to work with Adam Sincerely thankful to Helen and Tasha for investing a huge amount of effort in this process. So he thanks everybody else, and I'm not going to go over all the rest of it. I just wanted to make sure we did a follow-up showing that Microsoft will now at least be sitting at the board, voting or not. So that's the entire story, and I don't think we've heard the last of OpenAI because they are probably the most powerful AI player in the world at this point. So, and let's see. Renz is in here. Hey, Renz, I'm glad you got here. I know you're busy at work, so glad you stopped by to say hello. Yeah, Brian says, get that work, get that dollars. All right, Renz, very happy, as always, that you stopped by and that you take time out of your very, very busy schedule, because I know you just got to work. So that was the whole saga with OpenAI, and like I said, I think we've got plenty coming in the future. So that's all the comments. So let's continue on to our next story. Okay. Now, this was the big happening from this week. Let me get a little sip here. I just said the Cybertruck is real. No, really. So let's go into The Verge. And this was just yesterday, I believe. The event was just yesterday, I believe, in Austin, Texas. Because I know Jay Will went to it. All right, so Tesla delivered the Cybertruck, and people have been waiting a long time. Here's how to pre-order one. Those who previously plunked down $100, but that was what, three and a half years ago, to reserve Tesla's advertised 39,900 Blade Runner prop truck will need to revisit their Cybertruck purchasing plans. It's no longer $40,000. It's gone up a bit. You'll see that in a few minutes. So, and no, I won't be getting a Cybertruck, so you don't have to bother asking. So this was just written yesterday. The Cybertruck is here for real this time, and for those who haven't reserved one already, Tesla has a new ordering process. Today, you can pre-order the visually perplexing low-poly pickup on Tesla's website with a refundable deposit of $250, which is good, which tells you they're expecting a heck of a lot of orders. They already have a lot of orders. A small batch of early pre-order holders took delivery of the first production Cybertruck models at an event in Texas, and I think that was in Austin. Since reservations went up on Tesla's website in 2019, so yeah, it's been 4 years, the automaker happily accepted $100 deposits to get in line to buy a non-configured Cybertruck model. During the last earnings call, Tesla CEO Elon Musk confirmed there were over 1 million pre-orders, so that's why refundable. They're not worried about the pre-orders. For a short while, earlier this week, the price to hold a place in line for the Cybertruck went up to $250. Afterward, Tesla shut off pre-orders and added a countdown timer for the delivery event, and that was just temporary. Now, Tesla has reopened pre-orders and is inviting interested buyers to drop $250 to join the back of the line. It lets you choose between a rear-wheel drive, an all-wheel drive, and a new high-end Cyber Beast version of the truck with a new starting price of $60,909. So that's the cheapest you can get. So $20,000 up from what it was 4 years ago. The Cybertruck options are as follows. Once you pay your refundable deposit, you'll get an invitation when your Cybertruck is ready to be configured. It's not configured if the Cyber Beast model carries the previously announced tri-motor setup. Tesla originally promised a single-motor Cybertruck model with 250 miles of range on a single charge for basically $40,000, a dual-motor version capable of 300 miles for $50,000, and a top-tier triple motor with Motor One with an almost unbelievable 500 miles of range for basically $70,000. So they've gone up 20 grand, but I guess in the last 4 years, it probably makes sense. Everything else has gone up just as much. The Cybertruck has made its mark in 2019 as Tesla's sixth production vehicle and one of the first announced all-electric pickup trucks for consumers. Since then, Ford released the F-150 Lightning. Yeah, I guess that's a great seller. And Rivian delivered the R1T. Yeah, and a bunch of YouTubers have that already. And people can actually buy them right now. But there's a completely separate appeal to the Cybertruck, and it's certainly looking better today than it did as a prototype on the road. So just wanted to let you guys know, if you want to buy a Cybertruck, just come up with the 60 grand plus, and you're good to go. So I think that was probably the most exciting tech story we had this week. Stop screen for a minute. Okay, nothing new in the comments. Let's see. Okay. So back to story. So we're going to have a quick night since it's just me, but that's okay. All right, going to the next story. We're going to talk about NVIDIA. Now, like I said, I threw the second story in just because I thought it was so ironic, but this is the later story, so we'll start with that. NVIDIA soon to become the world's semiconductor leader, says TSMC chairman. And this was on Tom's Hardware, so let's take a look. And this was written by Matthew Conister. He also wrote the next story, which was technically before this one. NVIDIA to become the world's largest semiconductor firm in 2023, according to TSMC chairman, as long as the AI boom isn't a bubble. So he's the one that's predicting this, and they are the world's biggest chip maker. So probably knows what he's talking about. So let's go into reader view. Hopefully, there it goes. Okay, so this story is just from 4 days ago. TSMC chairman Mark Liu believes NVIDIA will become the largest semiconductor firm by the end of the year. Speaking at a lecture held by the Chinese National Association of Industry and Commerce, Liu discussed the future of TSMC in an AI-focused world and stated that NVIDIA would develop into the world's largest semiconductor company thanks to AI. 2023, you'll see the graph later. The graph is pretty amazing for this year. 2023 has been nothing short of extraordinary for NVIDIA. Its record $13.5 billion in revenue for quarter two, that's just one quarter, was impressive on its own. And the company followed that up with an $18.12 billion in quarter three. So they're doing okay. That kind of quick growth is practically unheard of in semiconductors, yes, because semiconductors are difficult and very expensive to make. Even AMD didn't see its revenue more than triple in the space of a single year when it started gobbling up market share from Intel. As for NVIDIA's rivals, the company made more revenue than Intel, Samsung, and even TSMC, the company that produces the vast majority of NVIDIA's chips. TSMC produces the vast majority of the whole world's chips. I think something like 40 to 70% of all the chips in the world are produced just by TSMC. And NVIDIA also beat them all in profit, especially Intel, which lost $8 million, and Samsung, which saw $2.86 billion wiped out due to factors like the NAND flash crisis. And I had to go look that up. Turns out there's this NAND flash, and of course they're very expensive to make, these flash chips, and it got to be a shortage of them in a lot of places. I gather that's just coming to an end. That's presumably why Liu believes NVIDIA will be the largest of its peers by the end of the year. So we've only got a few more weeks. Now check out this chart. This, I think, is kind of fascinating. In quarter one, 2021, quarter two, quarter three, Samsung took over and stayed in charge all the way through the third quarter of 2022. Second was Intel, and they kind of stayed second. And they started out first, but most of the time they stayed second. And then in the middle of 2022, they weren't second anymore. TSMC, I was surprised they started off so low in 2021, but they had come up and they passed Intel, but they did not pass Samsung until the third quarter. And then you look at NVIDIA, the beginning of 2021, way down here. And I guess we're talking billions here. And they went through 2020, 2021, 2022. End of 2022, they'd gone up at the beginning. The end, they'd gone down a little bit, but they were still number 4. And look at this year. Second quarter, they bypassed Samsung, they bypassed Intel, and in the third quarter, they bypassed TSMC. So I can see why the CEO is predicting they're going to be number 1. However, there are some caveats to these claims. Although NVIDIA did beat out its immediate rivals and made the most money in quarter 3, that might only have been possible since Intel, Samsung, and TSMC are in a slump. Yeah, because of that NAND flash crisis. All 3 companies were doing significantly better, which I showed you, in revenue before the start of the year, and they have all posted at least one quarter with more than $20 billion in revenue since 2021. If this turns out to be a temporary dip rather than a permanent development, NVIDIA would need to make even more money to keep up. But based on quarter 2 and quarter 3, I'd say they are doing just fine. And when your leading competitor says you're going to end up as number 1 for the year, you got to be doing something right. So I just thought that was a really fascinating story. And a very nice success story, too, for that matter. So, nothing in the comments. All right, so we will continue on to the next NVIDIA story. This story was a couple of weeks before that. You'll see that in a minute. Meanwhile, a lawsuit accuses NVIDIA of stealing trade secrets, written by the same guy, Matthew Conister, and this was from November 20th, so like a week before the other story, or about a week. Lawsuit accuses NVIDIA of stealing trade secrets. Perpetrator busted, now get this, with a screenshot of stolen code. And I think this is a done deal. It was so obvious they stole this code. Not necessarily their fault, but you'll see that in the story. So let's go into review. Now, is this what gave them the lead? I gotta doubt it, but who knows? All right. Automotive tech company Valeo, Schalter, and Sorensen is suing NVIDIA for stealing trade secrets. NVIDIA hired former, here's the guy who did the stealing. Former Valeo employee Mohammed Muniruzman in 2021. He's in jail, by the way. And before leaving Valeo, he copied large numbers of files, including source code, for an AI-assisted parking application. Now get this, it's a parking application. I guess it's a big deal, though. And other confidential documents. The alleged perpetrator accidentally, I don't think he meant to do this, but this is what cooked him and put him in jail. Accidentally showed the stolen files during a video chat, which others promptly documented with screenshots. So he didn't realize he was showing more than he thought, I think. Now that the employee has been criminally convicted, Valeo is after NVIDIA. So they got that guy put in jail. Now they're after the company that he worked for at the time, or that he went to work for. Because this guy left Valeo and went to work for NVIDIA, and they're saying he brought his stolen stuff with him. The theft was discovered when Muniruzman was on a collaborative conference call with NVIDIA and Valeo employees. While on the call, Muniruzman gave a presentation and shared his screen so participants could follow along. Now, here's where he screwed up. After the presentation was done, he did not stop sharing his screen, which he should have. which was likely unintentional. Upon minimizing the presentation window, he mistakenly revealed a window that contained the source code to Vallejo software and the phrase Vallejo doc. So these are the stolen documents that he brought with him to NVIDIA, except I guess he didn't realize that he had shown it before and he was still working for Vallejo. When his former coworkers saw the source code, they immediately recognized it, and they were smart, and screenshotted it as evidence. Well, I guess that evidence was used in court. Vallejo then investigated Muniruzzaman's actions before he left the company and discovered that he had copied the source code and other files, which, and I can tell you as a programmer, especially one who's been a contractor a lot, it is very easy to copy this stuff and take it with you. I didn't do it, but it could be done easily. In 2022, Germany began a criminal investigation of Muniruzzaman, ending in his conviction in September. So he went to jail about 2 months ago. While you may not have heard of Vallejo, it's actually a 100-year-old company based in Paris, and it's been in the high-tech automotive business for a couple of decades. Vallejo and NVIDIA were contracted by an unnamed car manufacturer to develop parking assistance software. So this car manufacturer hires the both of them, and the guy who's leaving one company and going to NVIDIA says, oh, I'll take this with us. Well, sure. Now NVIDIA's got it, and Vallejo starts a lawsuit, which I think they should. In its lawsuit, Vallejo describes itself as an established company in the automotive industry. Now, NVIDIA is merely a recent entrant into the automotive industry with a total lack of experience in making parking assistance technology. Yeah, NVIDIA is not known for making parking technology. So you got to think this company probably has the goods. What Vallejo implies is pretty clear. NVIDIA is a newcomer to the car industry, so how is it able to make such cutting-edge software? Yeah, by hiring somebody from your company. Vallejo argues that now convicted Muniruzzaman shared the company's trade secrets with NVIDIA. These secrets include source code, spreadsheets, and other documents are critical to understanding Vallejo's parking assistance tech. Yeah, that seems like a total done deal to me. NVIDIA hasn't commented on the lawsuit, but its lawyer sent a letter to Vallejo in 2022 explaining that the company had no idea Muniruzzaman had stolen anything confidential until he was already under investigation. And that's probably true. They probably didn't know this guy stole this stuff. They probably thought he was coming up with it. The letter also stated that NVIDIA had no interest in Vallejo's code and that it has cooperated fully. Well, if they have, then they're going to be paying out a heck of a lot of money, is my guess. It wouldn't be the first time, this is interesting, that NVIDIA has been sued for illegally using intellectual property. NVIDIA was sued in 2019, so just 4 years ago, for infringing on Herpes Corp semiconductor patents. However, the court case is still, so they're not out of that one yet, still ongoing, so NVIDIA isn't a repeat offender, at least not yet. So we'll see where that goes. So just, I thought it was a very good follow-up story, considering they made so much money in the second and third quarters of this year. So just good stuff. And anything new? Let's see. Yeah, and you're right, Brian. NVIDIA coming up. And I think it's awesome that they made so much money and they're coming up to number one. But is they're stealing stuff? The reason why? Probably not, but who knows? Anyway, very interesting stories. And I've got two more left. Yeah, two more stories left. So this one I just found the other day, and I just thought, since I have my Nothing Phone 2 with me, and I love my Nothing Phone 2, I just thought just now, Nothing Phone 2 to me was already a mid-ranger, but I guess not to call, because Nothing Phone 2A, a mid-range Nothing Phone. Let's go check Android Authority. Nothing's next phone could be a mid-ranger that takes after the Nothing Phone 1. So rather than copying the 2, they're copying the 1. Specs and images of the so-called Nothing Phone 2A have leaked. So let's pop into review. Get rid of some of these ads. So there's the picture, and he's going to reference this picture in a few minutes. Alleged, okay, we'll go here. Nothing might be bifurcating its smartphone lineup and planning to launch a new A series of devices. I guess they're taking a page out of Samsung, that are more affordable than the Nothing Phone 2. So they just started another company with cheaper products, but I guess they didn't throw this into that. According to a fairly new leaker named Sanju Chaudhary, Nothing is planning to launch the Nothing Phone 2A. The tipster has also posted the alleged specs and images of the device on X. As per the leak, the Nothing Phone 2A features a model number AIN142. It's supposed to feature a 6.7-inch 120 hertz AMOLED display, which isn't bad for a mid-ranger, with a center-aligned punch hole that houses a 16-megapixel selfie camera. A 50-megapixel primary camera is expected to lead the dual-rear camera setup, and a 4,920 milliamp battery is expected to power the device. So this was his, I guess, statement on X. So he put this out on X, and there's the specs right there. Two images of the alleged Nothing Phone 2A are tagged alongside the leaked information. See above, that's this. Okay. They show a device that looks a lot like the Nothing Phone 1 from the back. However, the image that shows the front of the phone carries a center place punch hole instead of the left aligned punch hole on the first Nothing. So on Nothing Phone 1, this is what it looked like, but the Nothing Phone 1 had its a front camera over here, not in the middle. So that's the difference. The about page of the device doesn't mention the model name 2A. However, it shows the device runs Nothing OS 2.5 based on Android 14. Unfortunately, many key details about the specs and hardware are still missing from the leaked information. We don't know the name of the processor running the device, so it's hard to comment on the price range it'll target. However, since the name of the device makes it sound like a mid-range phone, we could be looking at something that costs around $350 to $450. So that's a lot cheaper than the $600. But still, I thought that Nothing Phone 2 was a mid-ranger. If so, the phone could compete against the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. That makes sense. It's even around the same price point. Or even the upcoming Google Pixel 8a. All said and done, we would like to caution our readers about the authenticity of the leak. We were unable to verify the source of the images and the information. So maybe this might be more fake than most that we see. So we would like you to treat the leak with a fair bit of skepticism for now. We'll keep an eye out for any more information that might surface about the so-called Nothing Phone 2A in the future. So just thought that was interesting. Seems like Nothing is doing pretty well, except for that screw up they did with the copying the iMessage. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, nothing new in the comments, so we'll go on to our last story. I just, again, thought this was an interesting story that you're not going to see everywhere. Samsung to mass produce LPDDR5T RAM chips in 2024, playing catch up. And I think this may have something to do with the shortage that we mentioned in the other story. Anyway, this one's on Phone Arena. Samsung is ready to mass produce LPDDR5T RAM chips in 2024, the fastest DRAM yet. And this was published about a week ago by Sebastian Pierre. So let's go into review. And this is a very short story. Caught like a deer in the headlights at first, Samsung is now apparently ready to mass produce LPDDR5T DRAM chips. And usually Samsung is out front, not this time. You may have heard of LPDDR5T DRAM if you follow what Vivo has been up to lately in its Android juggernaut with a 1-inch camera sensor, the Vivo X100 Pro. This is the one that patched the aforementioned superfast LPDDR5T DRAM that delivers approximately 12 to 13% faster reading speeds than the previous one, the popular LPDDR5X. So good for them. They beat Samsung to something, caught them napping, I guess. Generally speaking, Samsung is the industry leader in the DRAM chip segment. That's because it is usually the first to introduce products based on new DRAM standards. However, it was caught off guard earlier this year when Micron and SK Hynix announced their LPDDR5T DRAM chips following the announcement of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor. The report says Samsung is ready to mass produce large quantities of LPDDR5T, so they're just a little behind DRAM chips in 2024. This intel was communicated to investors during the Tech Giants Investor Forum in Hong Kong recently. At the meeting, Samsung Electronics Vice President Ha Ryong-yoon explained the company's plans and ideas for the future. When an investor asked about the technology Samsung is working on for the future, the executives revealed the information about LPDDR5T DRAM. While Samsung is the biggest DRAM firm globally, SK Hynix is the company that has been the most talked about over the past year. Well, since they beat Samsung, I can see why. It's preemptively started the mass production of LPDDR5T DRAM, which some Chinese smartphone firms have decided to use in their new flagship smartphones, like Vivo did with its Vivo X100 Pro flagship. So good for them. They got ahead of Samsung. Doesn't sound like they're going to be out front very long, but good for them. So another story that I just thought was really interesting and you're not going to hear everywhere else. So that's what I've got. Brian said no info on the SoC. Nope, nothing. So that's it for this week, folks. Sorry, Ted's busy. And of course, Ted being a photographer, this month he's probably going to be out doing a lot of photography. Mike is out making money. And this is the night, Friday night, we'll rest up because he starts tomorrow morning and he works straight through for like 48 hours every weekend. He does this. Plus, he works another job. So can't blame him when he doesn't make it. So as always, I hope everybody has a wonderfully blessed weekend. I hope you enjoyed the stories and the image in back, which you see of the different shots of Christmas and winter. That was Eleanor's suggestion, so I'll be keeping this up for the rest of the month because it kind of brings in the spirit of the season. So thank Eleanor for that. So guys, have a wonderful and blessed weekend, and we will see you next week. And hopefully Ted and or will get in here. Who knows? By some miracle, maybe we'll get Mike. And as always, let's always remember we all do better when we love each other. So let's have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week. Here comes our ending